Finally catching a Hug stream live. Well, welcome. There's an actual purpose to today's stream. It's going to be the top 50 all-time greatest players of all time. The @oats. The @goats or whatever. You know what I'm saying. Okay, so we're looking at the best players of all time. So a lot of people always ask for my opinion on this because I am one of the few that has been playing the game pretty much. No, actually 100%. I have played alongside every single person on this list. Very few people could say that, right? Some people have only heard stories of Yen's era or PC Chris's era, etc. And then old school heads never played in the IBDW era, etc. However, I have played with every single person on this list, and not just like, I didn't just play around the time that they played, I competed against them. So I would argue that there are very few people on the planet who have the kind of perspective I have on an all-time list. I know my shit. You could argue with my opinion, but you can't say that I don't have a reason for thinking what I think. Y'all watched it. I lived it. With that being said, we have a 50 through 1 list update. I didn't do a second half stream until it fully came out because I wanted to go through the whole thing. And if you haven't seen my 100 through 51 talk, then that is on my YouTube. Check it out if you want to catch up on my thoughts. And then now the rest of the list is out, so I'm going to go through it. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to give you my thoughts on every single player and where I think they should have belonged. Like I said, a lot of people have been asking me for this opinion, and I'm happy to talk about it. I love talking about this kind of shit, and I have my own perspective on it, okay? Shootout does have better results, but Azin's mind games are better. Their mind games are better, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Let's start the list. We got Javi, Mexico representation. So Javi, he's always been one of the best players in the world, but we just didn't see it. So he's been killing it in Mexico since before Apex 2012, and Apex 2012 was when he debuted on the national stage. So this is the impact of Javi, right? If people were feeling like he could be the best in the world and he just hasn't had his shot to play against the US of A, and they were feeling this, I'm talking since like 2008, 2009, right? He already had a reputation. All right. Next, Drugged Fox. Drugged Fox number 49. In my opinion, honestly, might be a little too low considering his resume. Drugged Fox was a player that was constantly talked about on the underground. And then we'd look at results and the Drugged Fox wouldn't be there. I'd always keep waiting. I'm like, okay, you guys keep talking about Drugged Fox, but I'm not seeing it. Then Evo 2015 happened. And then everything changed. From that point forward, Drugged Fox was a menace. Big wins, big tournament results. Only problem is that period didn't span too long. He just kind of one day didn't feel like competing anymore. So it's funny because he kind of had a similar time span of results as, say, Ken and Azin, except Drugged Fox's was 2015 to 2018, and he still had results before that. At least he's in the top 50. Honestly, if he kept playing, easily would have been much higher. Moving forward, we have Court. Okay, maybe this is what Toph was talking about, because I'm looking at these two results. Those results look kind of similar. Actually, they're probably better for Drugged Fox, and, you know, if we're talking similar length of careers, why the fuck is Court above Drugged Fox? And I 100% agree with that sentiment. Now, I always felt that Court was a great player, but I think he's been overrated in a retrospective lens. Like, PC Chris was still around. Mango was coming up. Mewtwo King was there. Like, there's no world where you put Court above any of those three. Nah. I know he had a cool, like, 3 years, and it was, like, very impressive, but even then, it was just short. During the dark ages of, like, when a lot of competition went over to Brawl. Not that he wouldn't have succeeded, but it's just like, you know, you could have kept it going, and he didn't. Taj! Now here's someone who deserves this this part of the rank. I'm sorry, Court. Taj had longevity. Taj had results. Taj spanned eras. I think Taj definitely deserves this spot. His crowning achievement, I think everybody would agree, would be his Genesis run, where he ended up beating PPMD and Mango at that tournament. He ended up getting third. And I think even more impressive than that than the placement was that he got so bodied by Mango that he just quit out, and then he did one of these and he shook his hand. And he stopped in the middle of the set and he said, "Oh, I'm beat." And then he goes, "Good luck, man." Yeah, he knew when to fold. Yeah, who knows? Maybe, I mean, there's a world where Taj could have brought it back or something, but is it the unplug your controller, dog? I think it's that line, right? The unplug your controller, dog. So, absolute legend, definitely deserved. Yeah, and it's Mewtwo, by the way. It's also Mewtwo. So, every time I played Taj, I was always afraid of his Mewtwo. But I never told anyone, and I always kept a stone face. Like, if you beat his Marth, which I would, sometimes, he would sit there, and then he'd hover over Mewtwo, and then he'd look right at me. Like, he'd do this, and he'd look right at me as he's hovering over Mewtwo. And I'm just sitting there, I'm just like just smirking, and I'm just like, just waiting. Poker face, right? I think from Taj is where I learned my poker face. Because he would look right at me. I was terrified. I did not want the Mewtwo. Now, Samus is supposed to beat Mewtwo, but he knew there was a part of me that might have been scared, and he was like testing me, and when he saw I didn't react, he goes back to Marth or Fox, right? Because the matchup was supposed to be bad, but little did he know that I was terrified, and if he ever went Mewtwo, he absolutely would have won. No question about it, he would have f***ed me up. Okay, let's keep it going. Nintendude. So, when I saw Nintendude, I was like, wait, this high? I'm not sure about that. And then I read through his blurb, and then I saw what I already knew. Like, I knew he did these things, but for some reason I forgot. He's got wins on Mango, Mewtwo King, Plup, Axe. And it's not even just, like, he beat Plup's Samus, okay? Which is maybe why he was under the impression that he could beat my Samus, but we know that didn't work out. But still, these wins are super impressive. Now, I think people want to dismiss Ice Climber results sometimes because, like, wobbling was a thing and it would happen. But if they constantly do it throughout their careers, and then at the point where Nintendude was, like, a perennial top 30 player, it's earned, right? Like, he was killing it. So I think with those kinds of wins at those big tournaments and that caliber of player when they were at their peaks, right? Mewtwo King and Mango, this was God era, right? They were still killing it. This is Plup rising. This is Plup destroying every Ice Climber with Samus. So I think it's deserved. I couldn't get mad about him being this high. I don't think he deserves to be lower than anyone. Cactus, my man Cactuar. So Cactuar is an interesting one because his career spanned longer. It's just he kind of started going low-key after the revival era, like 2013, where he'd still get results. Like, the thing is, his earlier career was so goddamn impressive. I'm talking like top 10 caliber at different points. Probably like 2009, he's on some top 10 caliber shit. That when 2014, 15, 16 hit, and he was just top 50, it kind of felt like he might have fallen off. But that's still insanely impressive, and he still had a very long career, right? Now at this point, he's still a threat, and I think his early days are a little underrated. My earliest memory of Cactuar was when he pissed me off. It was around this Evo East time, like when Evo was about to hit Evo 2007. There was a house tournament. And this house tournament included me, Cactuar, Mewtwo King. It included PC Chris. It was a stacked little house tournament, right? He's discussing with PC and like Mewtwo King, and he goes, "Yeah, I think the top four seeds should be Jason, PC, and then me, and then I got to think about the fourth." And I was just like, "Holy fuck! Did this guy just seed himself above me? Does he not know who I am?" Because I didn't know him that well yet. I'm like, this motherfucker. I am Hugs. What do you mean? But back then, I honestly wasn't getting the respect I deserved. Chiller and I talked about it very recently. I'm like, do you remember that back when we used to do the rankings, we would rank people based on skill, not on results? Somebody would literally have better results, including me. We'd be like, well, yeah, Hugo's got really good results, but Dope is a better player. Like, Dope has more skill. So we should put Dope ahead of Hugs. And then that's what would happen. Like, literally, we would talk about it, and I would even agree. I'd be like, yeah, you're right. I do have the results. I did place, number 7th in overall MLG points for the entire year at the biggest tournaments of the year. But, I guess if you're saying KM has better skill, then I can't really argue with that. So I was still pissed. But in the end, I was applying the same logic to other players, so I couldn't really fight it, right? I would argue that DSF was ranked higher than he should be, because of his skill. Straight up. And then we would rank other people like Wife lower because we just thought other people were more skilled, even though Wife had better results. It was fucked up. So it was really strongly East Coast biased. It's actually how it worked. So I think Cactus felt like he had better skill, so he should be higher. And I was like, all right. Yeah, no, our logic was shit. All right, we got Kage. I think this is well deserved. I don't think there's anything wrong with this ranking. Kage, there was a point in time where Kage, as a Ganon, was like consistently top 10 threat. Like he was just in there. Like look at these results, right? Also the revival of melee performance over Mango was really big for him. Now granted, Mango beat him back with Link, and the West Coast doesn't forget, okay, because everyone thought that Mango was overrated. And then Mango showed up, and then, you know, Kage beat him with Ganon. And so people thought Mango was done, and then Mango beats him back with Link. And have you guys ever seen Mango's Link since? I haven't. I don't know where the fuck that Link came from, but he did it. And then he since had a great performance at DreamHack Montreal. I think was Kage's last really good performance, where he ended up beating me and Chudat. He hasn't had those kinds of results in the more recent years, but still a threat up, and still top 50-ish till like 2016, and then still top 100 up until like 2017 or something along those lines. So very long career with a dog shit character. I think the character's so bad, but he still managed to stay all the way up there. So I think he definitely deserves it. He didn't do it during the 2005 era, right? He did it like post-Brawl, the Dark Ages of Melee, and going into the post-Doc era, and he was still really, really good. Like the Genesis era, he was killing it. He was one of the best. Like he was up there with some of the greats back then, like including like Hacks. He used to have like a real honest rivalry with Hacks Money. Then Hacks got a whole lot better, you know? All right. Here we go. We got Duck. All right, here's where my bias comes in. I think Duck is better. For Duck, I put him up higher. So I think Duck is a little underrated. So he came out, Big House 1 was his debut in my opinion, and I think that was 2011. Quickly rose up the ranks, straight up king of the Midwest for years, right? Kells was king of Chicago, but Duck owned the region. He owned the Midwest, in my opinion, for a lot of years. Not just Michigan, which, by the way, Michigan, an extremely strong state within the region. Not only did Duck dominate that, he dominated the whole region. Like, I think he was in a lot of Michigan's head up until, like, Kalindi, like, grinded the fuck out of everything so he could start beating him finally. And even then, Duck would still beat him back. All right? So to run a region for that long with Samus, and then to perform on a national stage with Samus to the point where he got ranked top 15 2 times, perennial top 20, and then not only that, but he's also got peak wins. He's got big wins over the likes of Dreffen, Hungrybox, with Samus. Are you fucking kidding me? And then on top of that, he's also got the results to boot. Like, look at this lineup, right? And then first at Pat's house, which I think I read it in the blurb, one of the hardest, like, big regionals. Like, it didn't have the gods there, but it was a stacked fucking regional. And he did this consistently for a long time. In my mind, he is a bit underrated here. Maybe the only reason would be the lack of huge peaks, but he still had like really big regional wins and really big player wins. And also, he's Samus. It's hard to get like first place at a super major with Samus, right? Like, I mean, that's not a reason to put him up or down, but I'm just saying that it doesn't tell the whole story to just say, oh, where's the first place at a Genesis? Fuck it, we'll rank him lower. So Duck underrated here in my opinion. I don't know exactly where I'd put him yet, but I'm gonna look at who we have ahead and then decide from there. See, you got me fucked up. I have a hard time moving Ice down because I think Ice also deserves this rank. So there's got to be people ahead of them that don't deserve it, right? There has to be. All right, so we got Ice. Ice is one of those players that had a lot of promise from Europe and like totally fucking delivered. And he would travel to the US pretty regularly, constantly perform at a high level, and pulling off really big wins and upsets over in Europe as well, beating the likes of Dreffen. I guess he beat Hungrybox as well. A lot of big performances. The top 8 at the first Genesis back, I believe Genesis 3. There's 3, right? Yeah. Yeah, I remember when he first came out, people were calling him the European Mewtwo King. I think that was mostly because he was playing Marth. Because I don't think he's the European Mewtwo King. He beat SFAT fresh off of SFAT beating Hungrybox. Sorry. I think his Sheik / Fox era, I think they're both equally impressive. People didn't know that he came out with Marth. He came out with Marth. That's why people were calling him the European Mewtwo King. But then he promptly switched over to new characters in Sheik and then later Fox. But yeah, honestly, well-deserved. Like, these are top 8 finishes at really big super majors. Evo, Genesis. And these are spread out. This is like 2013, 2016, so he had longevity to him, too. So definitely deserved, and I can't be mad about that. And then Swedish at 41, fuck. I can't say that Duck, like, absolutely deserves it more than these people. That's nuts. These rankings are nuts. Honestly, if I didn't have my pre-2011 career, I might not be in the top 50. That's nuts. Well, no, I would. Court's here. No, I definitely would be top 50 because Court is here. And I'd be ahead of Kage. So yeah, never mind. I would have it. All right, never mind. Y'all thought you got me. Nope. All right, so Swedish Delight, honestly, a very regularly underappreciated player. It's like Swedish Delight was one of those people who just had to consistently get those results for people to start saying, holy shit, this guy's really fucking good. And then at a certain point, people couldn't stop denying him, right? He was always considered like, oh, we know he's good and he's from the East Coast, but like he wasn't in the headspace of the best until I'd say like 2016, where he started trying harder. He started, eventually he got lessons from Drug Fox and then did even better. I think he had one of the best wins that have ever existed in being the first person in like 8+ years to take a set out of our off Armada without being in the top 6. Like, we were literally waiting for the day that someone would get that win on Armada, and it was Swedish Delight who did it. So when we were discussing like who would beat Armada next, we were thinking people like SFAT maybe. We were thinking people like Westballz, Johnny even, whatever, right? But I don't think a lot of people were thinking Swedish Delight, and then he just fucking did it. Alrighty. Oh, that wraps up the 50 through 40. So this part of the list was good. I think Court is the only one who just did not deserve it. All right. Top 40. Fiction. Number 40. So this is an interesting one. Fiction went on Twitter and he talked about it, but I think he was fucking around, right? Like, Fiction sometimes tweets not super seriously, and he thinks something in his head and he just wants to put it out into the world and he thinks it's funny, or maybe he's serious, maybe he's trolling. It doesn't matter, right? You take it with a grain of salt when Fiction's tweeting about anything. Toph came out with his tweet and he was kind of in defense of Fiction being way too low. In a lot of ways, I agree, right? Like, this 5th place finish at Genesis 7, insanely impressive, right? That's as modern. That's literally the last Genesis we had in a live scene, right? Also, let's not forget, this guy came out the gate as a Brawl player. Not only did he kill it in that game, but as soon as he switched to Melee, he was good within months. I was practicing with him a lot, and I was telling the likes of Lucky and Johnny and like the Norwalk people, I'm like, yo, like, y'all gotta stop sleeping on Fiction. He's really fucking good. And like, he even tweeted saying that one day, like, people kept making fun of him and he just felt like getting good at the game and beating their asses. And that's exactly what Fiction did. Like, there's no two ways about it. He got good at the game really fast and he beat some of the legends of the game that quickly, right? He is insanely good, and he's been consistently good for a long time. Now, he takes his breaks where he just disappears for a while, but then he comes back, and it's like he didn't miss a fucking step. It's actually crazy. So, he's perennial, like, top 15 to 20 level. Now that I think about it, Fiction actually has those kinds of years in the most difficult eras, and he's got the results. 3 top 8 super majors is fucking insane. He just doesn't stop getting better. He's actually nuts. So yeah, definitely underrated, in my opinion. Not that Dreffen doesn't deserve 39th, though. So I think Dreffen is possibly a little underrated, to be honest, as well. I think both these players need to move up. But Dreffen, much like me, much like Chudat, somebody who started in 2004 and pretty much kept shit going. And at this point, he's doing it better than Chu and myself because he's still going to the date. Yeah, Dreffen's still doing it, and he's doing it at a high level. Now, granted, I think what's held him back and has kept him ranked a little lower than the likes of myself and Chewdat is that in the modern era, Dreffen's peaks have not been as high, with Chewdat having the highest modern peaks of those old school players. But I mean, with more time and more, like, he's still performing. He's still on a top 50 level, right? And then there was a year, I think the year he qualified for Summit, where he was arguably like top, like 35 or so, right? And again, a very long time. Getting better. Yeah, I think that's the only thing holding Dreffen back from a higher ranking, similar to myself. And also, his old school peaks were really good, but I don't see a second place at Evo here, so. Right, but good shit to Dreffen. I think he's a little underrated. And we got Amsa. So I think Amsa does not deserve to be this high, though I do think he deserves to be high. It's just that I also felt on the last list he got overrated. I think he was top 20 on the old list, or maybe top 30, and he got dropped here. Like, there was a point where people were saying he was better than Armada in Europe. And that might be true, but point is, when it came to performing in the US, Amsa had his pound forward performance, which was amazing. And then he did kind of well at different tournaments after that. But the majority of his results were in Europe, and he wasn't tested against our players as much. And even when he wasn't performing at a top 38 all-time level. So I think what puts him here is the fact that he beat Armada at pound. He did really well at pound, and he dominated Europe early on. So yeah, I don't agree with that at all. All right, Dark Rain. Dark Rain. I think this is accurate. So Dark Rain, a player that I could see Fiction and Dreffen being higher than Dark Rain. So Dark Rain is not too far off, but I still think there are a couple people who should be higher. Now Dark Rain was amazing, no question about it. And then following up Isaiah's career, I'd say like 2006, Dark Rain became the best Falcon main for a while, but he was still in contention. Yeah, definitely a really strong player. I'd say top 10 at different points during like 2006 to 2010. Yeah, you could argue he was top 10 at different points. But yeah, kind of once the documentary ended, Dark Rain would have some premier results, but they'd be sparse, and he'd show up, he'd do well, or sometimes he'd show up and not do well. But I think some people just noticed the times he showed up and did well, which it's good, but it's not the same thing as like Dreffen showing up to everything and consistently doing well. So I think it's a little too high. If you're telling me that Juggle Guy put him at 17th, out of your mind. Juggle Guy's list is absurd. But yeah, Dark Rain, I think a little too high. I'd put him a little lower. Okay, Silent Wolf. My man Otto. I think Otto's in a good spot. Silent Wolf is also, and I don't know if people are aware of this, he is also like 2006, like old school. Also, perennial top 15. At one point ranked number 10 in the world, I believe, right? So there was a point where he was top 10 in the world. And that's in the more modern era. And then on top of that, he absolutely dominated his region, right? He just owned the Pacific Northwest for years and years and years and years. Poor Blade-wise, that could have been his region, but Otto just wrecked him every single time. And he was so goddamn good. He had the longevity. He had the peaks, right? Like third place at HTC Throwdown, that came with a win over Mewtwo King. He has multiple wins over Mewtwo King. Mewtwo King had a Marth, guys. Since Ken, it's been Mewtwo King. And yet, Silent Wolf would beat Mewtwo King multiple times. Unfortunately, he started getting like some hand troubles, and I think that was the major reason why he just kind of quit and wanted to do other things. He could have still been doing it, but he's goated. He's one of the best. I'd say this is a perfect place for him. Absolutely cracked. Legend. Absolute legend. All right, now we got None. I think None, the reason he's here and should perhaps be even higher is because the man never goes away with his playstyle, right? Like, it's like he comes out the gate and you're like, okay, this guy's pretty good, but I don't know what to think about him. He's like a good player. And then he beats Mewtwo King. You're like, holy shit, Mewtwo King hasn't lost to a Falcon in like 8 years or something like that. Okay, that's really impressive, but he's not going to do it again. And then he does it again. And then he starts performing against all kinds of other players. Then he starts dominating Canada. Like, he's the best player in Canada for years, right? And then on top of that, you think, well, okay, cool, but he's got kind of a funky play style, and surely it'll catch up to him. And then that doesn't happen either. And he keeps beating people in the most modern eras with the most, like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I feel like. I'm going to be stylish. I'm going to be suboptimal, straight up suboptimal. And then he makes us rethink what optimal is, because then you're like, well, this is fucking working. He knows something we don't. He sticks with his style and he still does super well. And then on top of that, 20 hits, and then there's an argument that none might be top 3 in the world, right? 3 to 5 in the world. You're like, what the fuck? And then the best Falcon at that point. Above Wizrobe and above Johnny. With his playstyle. So it's like he's only getting better. And then that's what's put him up so high. And honestly, I think he's got room to be higher. He's just got to keep on the sticks, and he'll just end up like top 20 very soon. All right, we got Flya Manita. Now, Flya Manita definitely deserves to be high, but now that I'm thinking about it and I'm seeing some of the people below, I might feel like Flya Manita is a little too high, but I think he was even higher on the last list, so I think he might have dropped a little bit. But Flya Manita definitely deserves to be in the top 40, and who knows, maybe he's not too high, and I just haven't seen who else should be below him. I fucking love Fly. No, I think he's one of the best ever, and he's one of the players I miss the most. You know, maybe it's my bad, but his era between like 2008, like when Brawl came out and it was the Dark Ages, to into like 4 years into the post-Doc era, or up to like 2016 or something. He was top 10 multiple times. He was in that range, and he was perennial like top 15, if not better. And at certain years, yeah, probably better at certain years too. I'm not sure if 34 is the right number, but he definitely deserves to be in this range. Now we got Kobold, Colin Baldwin. I think what puts Kobold at this level, and I think it's fair, he's been all up in this bitch since 2006. I remember the first time I heard his name, it was not 2006, possibly 2007. But I remember first hearing his name at Pound, the one that Mango won. I saw him in the bracket, and I was like, oh, this Kobold guy got like 13th. Never heard of him. I don't know if I'll hear from him again, but a good shit, I guess. And then just keeps it going for years and years and years. Not only that, but placing top 8 at super majors, right? Like Apex, Pound. That would be a super major back then. Quality wins, one of the best players in Florida consistently. Oh, he's still in Florida, so actually that makes Florida stronger. And consistently like a perennial top 30, and then at a certain point top 10 in the world. I think the only thing holding back Colin is that he hasn't consistently held a top like 20 spot in the modern era, but he's got the longevity, and I think this, right? Like he peaks higher than Dreffen has. He definitely has. And he's done it in the more modern era, and he's done better than most old school players in the modern era. And he's still going. So I think this is very well deserved. I know I could say his name because I know him. All right, we got J-Man. Okay, so finally, I think they rated J-Man accurately. Last time, I think they put him in the top 20. And I thought that was a little absurd. There was a point where J-Man was arguably the 6th god. Like, he was the 6th best player. He was the Manu Ginobili. I see you, Blur. He was the Manu Ginobili of the Smash scene. He was the 6th best player, and I think it was inarguable. However, I wouldn't say short-lived. Like, I think he started to come out in 2008, and then he kind of just held it down up until right before the documentary came out, which is, it's like if you did well in the Revival of Melee era, in the Dark Ages, and he did really well. Like, I think inarguably the best of that era. Like, of the players that shined in that era, he was the best of that era. But it ended there. He didn't keep going. And that's for personal reasons, right? I'm just not going to comment on that. But when he was playing, when he was around, easily one of the best. Definitely well-deserved. I think this is more accurate than before because he got a little overrated considering the era. You know, it was just more of the old school love. But he didn't keep going after 2013, and that hurt him. Kirby Kazi, somebody who could have easily been higher. And I think as time goes on, I think that's hurt him a little bit. But this person like came out the scene, ended up being like top 10 in the world multiple times. And multiple top 8s. Some of them were super majors, right? I'd consider Revival of Melee one of the super majors. All right, cool. Kirby Kazi, I think this is fair. I think this is on point. If not, it could be arguable. He could be a little higher. He had the longevity. Unfortunately, he stopped playing around 2016. It was kind of sad. But, yeah, he just chose to stop playing, and then he did. He was one of my favorite players to play with and watch. All right, Captain Jack, number 30. Thank God. They're doing a much better job of ranking the old school players because I'm pretty sure they had them at like 15. I remember I would do my rankings back in the days and I would put like, this was me being generous, and I would put Captain Jack at like 19 or 20. Or actually not even in the top 20, and people would be like, what the fuck, Hugs? That's absurd. It's Captain Jack. And I'm like, dude, he didn't do it for that long, and he didn't even do it as well as Ken and Azin, etc. And I'll get to it later, but Ken and Azin are entirely too high. Lucky I'm even putting him in the top 30. So it's like he got tested in the modern era and it didn't work. So I just don't know. I think this is too high. I would love it if he came back and tried. Like, anyone is welcome to try to get good at the game again. And it's not easy, but you have the resources to do it, and you could choose to do it if you're ready to put in the work. I don't think it hurts your legacy, but it like reinforces the fact that you missed out on those later years. Because in my head, I'm already putting you down if you're not competing in the modern era. And then if you try and fail, in my mind, it's just like reinforced. All right, Kevin, Toy, definitely well-deserved number 29. Very, very long spanned career, which is huge for a long time. Right? Every single year, he's like top 20, top 25. So if we look at his lineup, like 4th place at SmashCon, Super Major. That's in 2018, by the way. This might be kind of low for Kevin, I'm not going to lie. 7th at Evo. 7th at Big House. These are all Super Majors, chat. Straight up. Might be a little too low. But shout outs to Kevin. I'm glad he at least made it into the top 30. And here we go. We got Zoo, baby. The one man that Chillin and I would not bet against. It's funny. Chillin and I were arguing about who was going to be ranked higher, and we were betting. And then when the idea of betting against Zoo came up, we're like, nah, we're good, we're good. I don't want to bet against Zoo. Fun fact, Chillin' Dude refused to bet me until I put him on the spot on stream. On stream, I was like, yo, you want to bet on it? And he's like, I could do 5 subs. I'm like, how about 10? All right, I could do 10. I fucking hustled him, man. I hustled him. But betting against Zoo? No. Because Zoo has a fucking long career with crazy peaks. He's got more peaks than me in the modern era, I think. Zoo absolutely cracked, right? And he did it for an extremely long time. So in my mind, Zoo was doing his thing like as early as 2007 or 8. And at a certain point, when I came back to the scene in 2009, he was inarguably like top 4 West Coast, maybe top 5. All right, now we got Chillin. Yay, Chillin. Woo! I almost want to skip it. He's still talking shit. Here's what I will admit. There are 3 players who held it down for as long as I have. It's Chillin, Chew, and myself. And I will admit that at that point in time, Chillin definitely was the better player. Okay, like we're talking old legacy. Chillin definitely had me. He had me beat. Okay, there's an argument for higher. Okay, getting 5th at MLG Chicago is really impressive. And in fact, he did it by 3-0ing me with Marth at that tournament. Okay, fine. 5th at Game Over. This is where he beat Ken. This is the Ken victory. Well deserved, Chillin. Very nice. Excellent work. Okay, and then he had modern results too. Okay, beating the likes of None, beating Wizrobe, and then like honestly perennial top 30 up until like 2015 or so. I think his official retirement was 2017, maybe 18. But he ended in top 50 every single year. Very impressive, very well deserved. And I'm talking 2004. The longevity is there. Honestly, only comparable to 2 other people. And now we have Westballz. Okay, Westballz, I think this ranking is well deserved. Could honestly get even higher, to be honest. It's arguable. There was a point where Westballz was straight up like top 10 in the top 8 range every like back to back year. This is in the era of the 5 gods, so that makes it even more impressive because 5 of those slots are taken. It's gone, right? And this era is probably between 2013. I remember is when he really started popping off in SoCal, and then people had to respect the name nation worldwide. Really, it was all the way up until 2015 that it was just straight up top 10 Westballz every time. He started struggling a little later, but when I say struggle, it's not real, right? It's just that he was so impressive that him being just top 15 was like, and people would be like, oh, he's fallen off, but it's like, dude, he's still top 15, right? And like he carried that like throughout, like he was perennial top 20 for the most part, right? Continuing on. 25, Lucky. I already was mad about this particular ranking because some players that I will not name ended up higher. But let's take a look, okay? Lucky, definitely one of the most goated players ever. Been doing it for a very long time. I think Lucky came into the scene like 2006, right? Actually, same time as Mango, yes. 2006. And had, I think he was always a little overshadowed by Mango's trajectory. But Lucky still had an incredibly impressive trajectory, right? If Mango was like #1 in the world, Lucky was top 10. I remember PC Chris came up to me. This is when Lucky and Mango were winning every team's tournament. And he'd go, dude, is Lucky even good? They keep winning teams, but I feel like it's all Mango. I'm like, I don't know. I can't say, but I think Lucky's actually pretty good. And then I think PC Chris understood after. They didn't want to admit. Right? And then because Lucky wasn't having the same singles results as Mango at the time, then he started doing it. And then now he's still going. And he's not at that same exact level right now, but he's still like in that range every single year. All right, you guys ready to move on? Look at these guys. Woo! Beers in the chat, boys. We have some doubters in the chat. I get it. Okay, but let's talk about it. I know a little bit about this player. Started in 2004. Quickly rose up the ranks, including beating Chillin the very first time they played in a money match for $20. That's a lot of money back then. Chillin's still in high school. There's no way he had that much allowance, and he gave it all to me. And that's just the start of his career, okay? We're talking Evo Finalist 2007. Got second place. There's very few finalists ever in Evo. There's like 6 or 7, I don't know, there's 8 or something. And then back then, we got MLG Orlando, 7th, top 8. MLG Anaheim, 7th, top 8. By the way, MLG Orlando, you know why I got 7th and not 8th? It's because I had to play Chillin' Dude for a tiebreaker. And what do you know, guys? I won that. So I got 7th at that tournament, okay? So that's 2 Super Majors in 2006. You look at this list and then you think, okay, these are all old results, right? But what about the modern day? And you look here and then there's a top 8 finish at Genesis 2018. These results so good that they didn't even include my 9th place finish at Evo 2015. These are results that would just downright make you forget about 129th at Evo, in my opinion. I don't even think anybody should ever talk about that. All right, but basically, okay, let me be real with you here, okay? I think I deserve this spot. I wouldn't be super mad about being a little lower, depending on who they have above me. What allows me to deserve this spot is the top 10 nature of my early career between like 2006 to 2008, and then coming back and then also being in that range between 2009 and 2011, and then coming back and then being like kind of perennial top 20, like starting in 2015, and then a top 8 at a super major. I personally think that's kind of cool because no Samus has ever done that in the modern era. Your diss track aging like sour milk, Chillin', okay? All the people you mentioned that beat me in that song are really good players. Still losing to Dreffen? Yeah. Still losing to Gatsu? Yeah. They're really good, dude. I don't know what you want from me. Yeah, thank you, Blur. Reasonable loss. All right, we got Wobbles. I think Wobbles definitely deserves this. Yeah, because he was doing well in the old school era, like super champ combo. You can see it right here, placing 5th. I think he beat Ken at this tournament too. I think Wobbles is the reason that Ken got 9th this tournament. And I think super champ combo was like the last time we saw dominant Ken. I think that was it. That was the end of Ken. And I think Wobbles did it. And then he kept it going, right? I personally think getting second place at Evo is really impressive. So he got second at Evo the first time we were back post-documentary. I mean, technically his is just an Evo and mine is Evo World. So, but no, his Evo was more impressive. All right, I'll admit that. All I did was beat PC Chris and Mango. You know, whatever. Neither here nor there. But Wobbles also performing very highly at other super champ combo. Oh shit, I hadn't heard of this one. I honestly think that you could argue lower or higher between any of these up to here. I think that's totally justified. And then you could also move Cody down, because I actually think Cody might be a little too high. Now that I didn't think about it at first because he's been so solidly 3rd in the world for like a year. And I think he's definitely just going to be way higher than this if you just give it another year or two. But the time span of his dominance has not really been long enough. Like, most of these results, yeah, you can see them like 2019. And he's been good before that, but before that, he was like freshly top 100. And then the next ranking, he's like freshly top 50. And those rankings felt okay. Now he's just on a whole nother level. And I think this propelled him. I think last list, he was like number 90 something like that. I mean, we all know he's just only going to move up on this list. Kind of like Zane, he was like 70 something. Wait, Mike, you asked them not to rank you on the all-time list? That's not even true. I know that's not true. No, chillin', don't let him troll you. That is absolutely not true. Okay, I'm not going to entertain it. All right, I'm going to move on. I think Amsa deserves 21. I think he deserves higher than all of us at this point because he's still doing it. But he literally just showed up to Summit and proved that he's just straight up on that level still, if not even better. He played like he should have gotten third place, third to fourth, right? I think his 9th place finish at this last Summit was actually just fake news. Like, that did not look like a 9th place run at all. But anyways, look at this shit. Right, 4th at Main Stage 2019, 4th at Genesis 6 Super Major, 4th at EGLX, 5th at Apex Super Major, and I think he's got top 8s at other majors too. Now we got shroomed, and I think that this is Dewan being underrated. Dewan deserves much higher. Not just because of his early career, but because his later career still kept him in the top 10. And then even when he was kind of done with that super peak, he was still consistently top 15. Not to mention that he was top 10 in the world for multiple years with Dr. Mario. And then after he switched off, he was still top 10 in the world for a couple more years. And then top 8ing at a super major in 2020. Come on. Come on. This is too low. This is outrageous. And when you go down the list, you're going to see why. Not Hacks Money. I think Hacks Money could have an argument. I don't think Hacks Money is absurd here. I think Hacks Money definitely deserves this. Possibly even better. By the way, they included his 4th at Genesis 7, but not Dewan's 7th at Genesis 7. Fine. Unfortunately, when he got top 8 at Genesis 7, he could have kept going. He wasn't super active during the pandemic, and then, shit happened. With the apology, I don't think he did anything egregious where he shouldn't be allowed to play. I think he should be allowed to play again. But incredible results, and then there was a point where he was inarguably top 10 in the world. He kind of fell off when he had the hand problems, and then he switched to the box and he started coming back. Come 2020 and some of 2019, he's absolutely back on that level. Absolutely huge. And I'm not even mad about this ranking. If he was going to be ranked above Shroomed, there's an argument. I still think Shroom should be higher, but there's no world where Hack shouldn't be top 20. And then Johnny, also absolutely being robbed. Johnny was doing really well in SoCal on the West Coast, starting from Big House 1 around that period. Like, he was top 10 in the world at that point, in my opinion. And then comes the documentary era, and then he's a perennial top 20. And you're thinking, fine, but it's Falcon. And then he's a perennial top 15. And then, in the most modern era, he's a perennial top 10. And then, in the most recent era, he's almost a perennial top 5. Right? Like, there was a point where he was like in the range of 3 to 5 this last year during the pandemic. And he's not quite exactly there, but he's still top 10 right now. And this is as modern as it gets, and it's throughout many, many, many years. So you line it up, right? You got the longevity, check. You got the peaks, check. You got the modern results, check. You got the improvement heading into the modern results, check. He's not falling off. He's not doing what I did, what Shroom did. He's not going in this direction. He's going in this direction. So if I'm saying that these 3 players feel too low, it's because of the next ranking. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but Korean DJ absolutely does not deserve 17th among these people at this point. No, I don't just hate the old school. KDJ has an even, shorter career. So, to KDJ's credit, he did come back post-Doc era, and he did the best of any of the old school players who tried it. KDJ actually did it. KDJ was actually running some top 30 shit after the Doc era for a year and a half to 2 years. But his peak was not as dominant. It was around the era, but it was not as dominant as Ken and Azin's. And then it was short, and then once he left, He did come back and he did well, and I give him props for that. But I do not think that peak between 2007 and 2008 is worthy of being higher than S2J, than Hacks, and Shroomed. God, no. I think I would go so far as to say it's egregious to have him above S2J, Hacks, and Dewan. Alright, we got SFAT, and I already tweeted about this, so I think you guys know how I feel. I think this is also robbery. So in my opinion, SFAT deserves between 12 and 10. So I wouldn't put him above Axe and Wizrobe, but it'd be arguable. I don't think it's arguable with Wizrobe anymore, but it'd be arguable. But I'd put him above Ken, and I'd put him above Azin, I'd put him above Isaiah. For those of you saying that is insane, I actually got interviewed by Walt and Ipengu, and they asked me to justify. They asked me to explain, and I could explain to you guys right now as well. When you talk about legacies, I think you got to look at a couple things, right? You got to look at peaks, you got to look at longevity, and then you got to look at the era that they did it in, right? Ken wins in the peak side. Longevity, I think we all agree, SFAT wins there. And then if we look at the eras that they competed in, SFAT competed in much tougher eras. So then you'd have to decide if the peaks outweigh those other two things. Some of you might say no. But here's where I add yet another layer to it. So SFAT, while he wasn't peaking at number 1 like Ken was, he's been peaking as high as 6th in the world at a different point through the 10 range consistently throughout eras. All from I'm talking 2009 all the way up until 2021. And he's always been on this trajectory, right? It hasn't been super sharp, but he's always been on this trajectory, right? Just a mainstay of the top 10, pretty much. At a certain point, this is the main thing here. So some people don't want to hear it. They just see the lack of godhood or top or being first in the world and think it's impossible for them to have a better legacy than Ken. I think he does. I think at this point he's just so consistently good in much tougher eras. And to the end of time, I will say that Ken left before he got tested by the literal exponential improvements in the scene. He just left. All right, Isaiah, someone else who definitely should not be over SFAT. Remember how I said that Chillin and I and the panel back then used to rank people based on their skill, where we'd be like, yeah, Hugs has the results, but clearly KM has more skill, so we have to rank KM more. I think Isaiah is the main reason we always did this, is because Isaiah would have the dog shit results, but we all knew he was so goddamn good, and we didn't have it in us to rank him low because we knew how good he was. So it's literally, this is how it goes. It's well, I want to rank this player higher because he has the results, and then people would be like, well, including myself, would be like, well, he's more skilled. And then some people would be like, well, we should rank on results, and then other people would be like, well, if you're doing it that way, then you'd have to justify dropping Isaiah. And I think we all agree that Isaiah needs to be higher. And then we'd all be like, yeah, that's true. We can't drop Isaiah. That doesn't make sense. Okay, we'll just rank people based on skill. And then that's just what... Isaiah was the reason that those rankings were like that. Well, not his fault, but his existence. But yeah, I mean, still one of the best. And at the time, inarguably top 3 up until 2006. And then he started, it was arguable that he wasn't... It was safe to say he was 7th. Back then we had 7 gods, and it was getting pretty safe to say that he was the 7th. Because he just wasn't really playing to his best. He wasn't... I mean, you could say try, didn't try, and it's possible either way, but if you can't have the mentality to be the best in singles, then why are you going to have a singles legacy? Not get hurt, you know what I mean? Okay, if we made a top 100 skill of all time, then of course Isaiah's in the top 5. Hell, Chillin' Dude might be top 10 if we're going that way, right? Wizrobe number 14. I think if I had an argument for SFAT, Wizrobe is another robbery, in my opinion. I think Wizrobe deserves 11 or 10. I think he might deserve top 10. I'll look at it. No, fuck it. I'm saying he deserves top 10. Basically, Wizrobe's been going since the post-stock era. So he doesn't have the longevity of some players, but still, that's still fucking 8 years at this point. In the toughest eras. Consistently a top 10 threat. And then more in the modern era, a top 6 threat. And then even past that, there was a year where this motherfucker was number 2 in the world. Wait, or was it X? Fuck, he was number 2 or number 3. As a Falcon main. Abso-fucking-lutely absurd. Absolutely cracked. And he's been doing it for a long time. And he's only been doing this. I just don't understand how you can't put him in the top 10. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to be disappointed. I don't know who's next, but I'm going to be disappointed that they're there. And he's not. Yep, I'm disappointed. PC Chris. Oh, by the way, PC Chris, another person I'd put below SFAT. Very good. Very amazing peaks. The arrow was short. The arrow was short, and it wasn't absolutely dominant. And I think he had a case for being the best at different points. Simply not even dominant enough in that short amount of time. And simply put, in a weaker era, that there is no world in my mind where he deserves it over Wizdrobe or SFAT. Axe. Now, Axe is a person you could argue it for. Axe could deserve it. I don't know if I'd give... Like, I would be stuck deciding between Axe and Wizdrobe. I think both of them deserve it over SFAT. But I'd be hard stuck deciding between Axe and Wizdrobe. But, well-deserved, I still think he should be high. I don't know. I'm looking at this, right? 12 feels wrong. I think Axe deserves top 10. Just find it within your heart. You know you need to let go, Blur. Chat, you need to let it go, chat. Of your favorite 2006 Marths, okay? You need to let it go. Embrace Axe and Wizdrobe into your heart. Into your top 10 heart. Embrace the modern era. Get those Marths out of there. PP can stay. He could chill. PP's cool. Mewtwo King could chill. He's cool. Zayd, he's cool. They could chill. Get those other 2 Marths out of here. Get them out. Y'all need like a smash exorcism. You need to forget. You need to move on from that. All right. Now we have Chudat. A person who I think has an argument for top 10. Me, Chillin' Dude, and Chudat. With Chillin' Dude for sure being the worst of the 3. But of those 3, Chudat has had the highest peaks. Equivalent longevity. First of all, he had the highest peaks of almost anybody back then, 2007, 2006. To have that kind of peak, and then come back and then hit top 10 in the modern era, and then keep being a threat throughout all those years, crazy impressive, and deserves top 10. I think a lot of people can agree with that. Top 10, baby. We're here. We're in it now. It's already 8 o'clock. Oh, fuck. And my camera's not working? Oh, fuck. We have Plup. Well-deserved. He came into the scene about 2011 or so, and was like up and coming. By the time the Doc era hit, he was pretty much a perennial top 20. And when I say perennial, I mean 1 year, because the next year he was like top 12. And then the next year after that, he was a perennial top 6, which is crazy. That first place at Genesis, though, that's just mwah, icing. Mwah. Right? None of you were mad, right? None of you were mad, right? Zane, number 9. I think this is a perfect placing for Zane. I think Zane, obviously way underrated on the last list, but that's because he was still kind of a fresh face. He started in 2014, I think. He's post-up, right? Started in 2014. Steady rise up, like, and fast rise. And he's the kind of player, he beats you once, he's probably not going to lose to you again. Once he figures you out, you're kind of done, right? And he kept doing that all the way up until he started competing with the best of the best, right? The first time he beat someone like Leffen, the first time he beat someone like Mango. Again, like I said, the eras get exponentially harder. This ain't no 2006 shit, okay? It's like, yes, 2006 was, in my opinion, when Smash was actually hard. But yeah, Zane doing it in the most modern of eras, so most definitely, even though he hasn't had as many years under his belt, he's still got like 6, and he's doing it when it counts the most, okay? Look, extremely impressive, okay? First. Okay, we're talking in 2006 as well. A very impressive year, okay? Yes. But I just don't see... I don't think that it's justifiable to have Azin, who is, I think, inarguably the number 2 player in the world between 2004 and 2000, at least mid 2006, maybe early 2006. But that's still number 2, and it's still 3 years, and it's still, I'm not going to be disrespectful, okay, but did not get tested against the newest eras to the same degree. And as I've mentioned multiple times, the eras got exponentially harder. Like, if he kept going till 2012 and he was on this top 3 shit, 100% agree, chat. 100% agree. Put him in here. But he didn't. Stopped around 2008-ish. And even during that time, wasn't number 1. And it wasn't that long. I'm sorry. Too high. I know it hurts. I know it hurts, Blur. But in your heart of hearts, I want you to look at Wizrobe in the eye. Look at his cold, reacting eyes. You tell me that Asin deserves to be higher. I don't think so. PPMD. Here's someone who was number 1 in the world around 2015. And then also before that, at different points. I think after that is when he kind of just stopped playing. And 2015 is 6 years ago at this point. The meta has definitely evolved. And I'm still not going to take that away from PPMD. Because he went through eras. He got challenged through multiple eras. And he proved that he could be the best. And then he was number 1 in the world after, like, in eras that were extremely difficult with top level competition. But PPMD absolutely deserves it. I think of the 5 gods, you know, that era, he definitely has the least impressive legacy. But that's nothing to scoff at. I mean, he's in leagues with Hungrybox, Armada, Mewtwo King, Mango. That's insane. But yes, absolutely deserved. I have no problem with this. In fact, I think it should be 1 spot higher. But Leffen, not a part of that 5 god group, because he's kind of the guy that destroyed it. He's kind of the guy that destroyed the whole concept of it. And look at this. This resume is insane. Not only did he challenge that era of dominance, being a complete up-and-comer, coming from Europe, where I will say it is straight up harder to do it in a region where that competition is that we had in the US is not as readily available. And he did it fast. He did it swiftly. And then on top of that, he just got better than a lot of them. And then on top of that, he just kept doing it for years after that. And then there's a world where right now, we're not seeing a whole lot of him because of fucking Visa and the US, we suck. But there's always the question, is Zane best in the world? Is Mango best in the world? Because Leffen's still here, right? And it's totally reasonable to assume that he could be best in the world right now. They just have to play. Winning an Evo. Winning, get on my level. That was his first one where he tweeted, get on my fucking level. Get on my fucking level. That's how he talks. And I would go so far as to say, it's really funny too, because some people make fun of Leffen because he said, I will win an Evo. And then people were like, well, he didn't know which one. He didn't call out which one. It took him a couple years. Motherfucker, you say that you'll win an Evo and see what happens. 99.999999999% of you can type that and it will never come true, okay? I think Leffen got kind of robbed. Probably by 1 spot. I think he got kind of robbed. I think he deserves 1 spot. Just one. Just 1 spot higher. But we'll talk about that later. Who do we have next? Oh, it's Mewtwo King. Hold on, you're telling me Mewtwo King is arguably the most dominant Smash player of all Smash games of all time. Now, granted, he hasn't been as big of a threat in Smash 4 and Ultimate, but his Brawl dominance, undeniable. And then Melee, also one of the 5 gods. I'd say that PPMD was more dominant than Mewtwo King in that era, but Mewtwo King, again, has the years. He has the longevity. He did it before PPMD. I personally think it is absurd that Mewtwo King is 5th. And once again, people will say, oh, it's just 1 spot, Hugs. Well, if it mattered in the top 20, it matters even more here. I think Ken, spoiler, should not be ahead of Mewtwo King. I think this ranking here is egregious. I think this is egregious. I think this is I wouldn't call it egregious. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong for PPMD to be below Ken. And it's pre-2008, guys. I think we need to let it go. I think this is far too high. I know there are fans, and yes, King of Smash. I think he's one of the best ever. If he did it up until 2010, I'd absolutely give it to him. I'd give him 3rd. If he kept doing this first place shit till 2010, he's got it. Oh, he's got it, baby. But it ended in 2007, guys. Or 2008. Very early 2008. It ended. It was over. And as I've said multiple times, I think we are all in agreement that shit got way more testing as the years went on. If you didn't transcend an era, it better be the modern one. In my mind, if you didn't transcend an era and you just kind of dominated your own, it better be a modern era. It better be post 2010s. Otherwise, these other guys who have been doing that, I think they're going to take it. All right, Hungrybox, number 3. I think there was an honest argument for GOAT between Armada, Mango, and Hungrybox. However, Hungrybox, in my opinion, had the least solid argument, but if he kept it going for like 1 to 2 years, honestly, he probably would get it because he was ranked number 1 for the longest. He's also got longevity. Keep in mind, he's been really good for a long time, and then he was part of the 5 God era. To have first for longer than Mango and Armada is extremely impressive. I'm not going to take it away from him, because even though his first place was a little shakier and he was more challenged, as I mentioned, that's just the nature of being the best now, because people are just that much better. But I could see an argument for slightly higher, but I wouldn't entertain it too much. I still think it has to go to Armada and Mango. Now we have Armada. This is where it gets really tough. Armada is fucking goated, okay? I'm not saying he's the GOAT, but you could say it. I don't think his status should ever be put into question. I'm not one to agree with some of the hate he gets for quitting. I think he had all the right to quit. I think everyone gets to quit whenever they want, but that's the problem with retiring, right? Like I said, you can retire, but what you're doing is you're allowing other people to build a legacy. You're no longer building a legacy. You're done. You set your record and you're gone. And then it's just the nature of things. If other people keep playing, they're giving themselves a shot to surpass you. If Armada was number 1 at any point, Mango was always number 2 at any point. And then that number 2 guy gets number 1 in the world again, which arguably that's where Mango is right now, then you're just going to get surpassed. That is the reason why I would agree with Mango being the GOAT. The GOAT. As of right now. Like I said, if there's a date where Mango decides to quit the game, it'll be a sad day. It'll be a very sad day. Probably the worst day of Melee. I'm not kidding. He's got this game on his back, okay? Like, let's be real here. Losing Armada was hard. I remember talking to Blur. I was legitimately sad. A lot of people were sad. That's a tough one. Losing Mango is going to be even tougher. But should that day come, it's going to open the door for other people to build further legacies on top of Mango, and that's just the nature of things. But right now, because Mango has still been playing and he's managed to continue to play, like, he's been inarguably top 2 in the world for the last, like, since 2019, and that's years he's been adding onto his legacy, whereas Armada has not been able to add to his legacy. And I think this is a totally fair bet. I think Mango's the GOAT. I've already said it before. And I've said before that I think it's arguable, and I'm not sure I've given it to Armada before. So it's not, I'm being honest here. Like, it's not just the bias. I think Mango is actually the GOAT right now. And it's a great thing to say, because I love Mango's playstyle. I love him as a friend. I am happy to say that I think he's the GOAT. And it's cool to see him recognized as the GOAT here. And I think it's correct. I think this is absolutely correct. Press 1 if you think Mango's the GOAT. Press 2 if you think Armada's the GOAT. Like, really, be honest, right? Even if you might be a fan of one or the other, be honest. I see a lot of 2s, right? I see a lot of 1s, I see a lot of 2s. It's definitely, it's tough. You don't talk tournaments on this level. You talk years of being number 1. That's how crazy this shit is. And just remember, one of the hardest esports to ever exist. By the way. Props to everybody, okay? I might have said, like, who belonged where, etc. But for real, that's just me arguing about their placement, but all of that is kind of like secondary to the fact that these are like the greatest players to ever play one of the hardest games ever. I'm sorry if I sounded like I was hating on some people, but in the end, everyone on this list they're all god gamers, all right? Like, I'm always jealous of chess because everyone gets a grandmaster title, and that title sticks with them till the end of time. I think Melee players, of all esports, I think Melee players deserve a title. I would love to walk into a room full of strangers and they have to call me God Gamer Hugs. That'd be great. I deserve it. God damn it, I deserve it. So does Ken. Right? So does Rishi. We all deserve the God Gamer title. That'd be great. Just address me as God Gamer Hugs, please. Just please, come on. Come on. So anyways, this list, I thought it was great. There were some things that I didn't agree with. Overall, like it a lot more than the first list that they made. And for the most part, I think there were arguments for some things. Others not so much, but still. Awesome list. God gamers, every single one of them. I'm glad they did it. It got us talking about Melee again. I've missed rankings. I've missed ranking seasons. And I'm glad that that's going to be coming back this year. Alrighty, cool, guys. Once again, thank you for watching. God Gamer Hugs. Signing out. See y'all. Peace out. Hugs, was Duck ever better than you? Yes, absolutely. There were different points, and I think it's totally reasonable to argue that he's just better, like a more goated Samus. Oh, a little switch seas with Duck. I should ask them. Nah, I'm cool. I'm just gonna keep my rank.